Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Post-Daily News Show for Tuesday, June the 7th. It's John Pollock Wai Ting here with you for the next 20, 30 minutes, however long it takes to go through and get you all caught up on the news at hand. How are you doing today, Wai?
Doing all right, John. How are you?
I'm doing well. Has the rain subsided? We got destroyed today.
Looks like it has. Yeah,
there was like a warning put out. Like that's when rain requires a warning. That's when you've really got to take heed.
That bad? Really?
Yeah. I was gonna go out this morning. I was gonna go out on my bike, and nature had a different idea.
Well, maybe now you can after this.
Maybe I could. Maybe I shouldn't have been deterred by the rain. Maybe I should have just gone for it. What's the worst I could have?
It's water. Come on.
It's a natural element. All right, well, we have lots of news to catch up on. I guess we'll just wrap everything up involving Cody Rhodes with the follow-up on Monday Night Raw with the angle of Seth Rollins coming out, the tease of the two burying the hatchet, and a hint of a Seth Rollins babyface turn, but all for naught when Seth destroyed Cody once again, and Cody will be going in for surgery on Wednesday, and I guess we will probably after that get a full extent of like how damaged the tendon is, and hopefully putting together a bit of a timetable of when he will be able to come back. But that was certainly the story going in and coming out of Hell in a Cell, and that was the focus of the opening segment of Raw. So they have a lot of, I think it's in the short term, it's unfortunate you are losing your top babyface, I would say, of either brand. But at the same time, Cody is going off into this surgery and recovery. The most popular he has been, I would say, in years. I would even include like the latter half of his AEW run. Like I think like this is like the peak of where Cody has risen with that match on Sunday, the reaction to it, and what he is poised to have on a return where it's a company that we are always talking about finding those baby faces, and he, to me, is the clear-cut number one.
At the moment, yeah. I mean, it's obviously highlighted, I think, with a real lack of babyface that WWE has even attempted to create over the past several, months. Over on the heel side, of course, you have Roman Reigns, but there's really been nobody to rival him. And I think they've been making real strong attempts to put Cody into that spot, but like the type of performance we saw on Sunday was something that I think, pushes him to that direction in ways that I don't think booking alone could do. This was the type of like performance that was beyond maybe like the scope of fictitious professional wrestling planning.
Real life gave them something, and they were forced to like run with it. Like you had to. There was no ignoring what was happening.
Yeah, that's right. And the timetable of this particular injury, if we are to judge, prior pectoral muscle full tears, puts it very much in line for a Royal Rumble return, and thus a WrestleMania, story almost kind of built in. The question is, I mean, 6 months, up to 6 months, I should say, is still quite a long time.
Yep.
And what do they do? Do they attempt to, keep Cody's presence on TV in some way to keep his name alive up there?
Yeah, I mean, you do have like the ultimate template of a return of this nature is Triple H from over 20 years ago, and I think I would sort of want to follow that blueprint. You are kind of limited if the guy physically cannot do anything. How much can you really? But you can do updates. You can like document this journey of the comeback, and I think that would be
commentary an option.
It could be. I think there's also sort of the short-term sacrifice of Cody being away that makes the return so significant as well. But I mean that I guess there would be options on the table if that would be something that I don't think in the immediate future would be an option. But traveling each week, would that interfere with your recovery as well when you're looking at that? But it seems like in the short term, they have John Cena coming back at the end of this month, which I'm sure was planned out well before this. Flipping Edge back to a babyface as well, and I would say even a further relaxing of the brand split, where I think we're going to see more talent back and forth. Because when you size up Raw, Edge, your top babyfaces that you are left with, Riddle is in the mix, but then you have Bobby Lashley, Edge, and AJ Styles that are 45 to 47, 48.
Randy when he returns.
Randy when he returns, but again, not your future. Like they are lacking on kind of like that youth side of things. But at the same time, they are also making a lot of people focused on the title now that you do have a lot of matches set up. Like you have Drew issuing the challenge. You have Riddle setting up a challenge. Lashley kind of hinting at that after Hell in a Cell. And you'll have someone coming out of the Money in the Bank as a potential contender, which could be any of those three, plus Randy. So I'm not too worried now about at least finding contenders for Roman to get you through the summer. And with Cena coming back, we'll see what his schedule ultimately is coming back. Like they do have a short-term plan, at least, that this shouldn't be too detrimental, as much as detrimental can be in this current era for the company, that a star going down, it's not life or death to this company at the same time. It forces you to adjust plans and creative, but I mean, they are not going to feel this one financially.
This is a company without a world championship that is active on either show. And, this will be the case for the better part of the summer, it sounds like. And they're doing fine. I think we've seen with professional wrestling, something like this, might force their hand to, put their efforts to create, somebody that they otherwise wouldn't have. This whole summer could have been used to push Cody in a way that, they were planning to anyway, but now they'd be forced to try somebody else.
Yes. Maybe Cody will have incredible John Cena-like recovery capabilities, and he comes back as a Wolverine version of himself.
A Wolverine version?
Yes.
Because
he takes
of the
on the characteristics of Wolverine.
Oh,
yes.
Interesting.
You can't just be a man. You can't just be a guy with a desire to be champion. I need more.
With or without the adamantium skeleton and the claws?
Absolutely.
Okay.
New suit. Sideburns, the whole 9 yards.
We'll be doing his recovery in the Weapon X program, perhaps.
Yes. And then we'll get Wolverine and Big D fighting for the opportunity to dethrone Roman.
Interesting. Okay.
All possible. An interesting story that came out on Monday, first reported by Mike Johnson at PW Insider, is that there was a edict issued seeking to remove MJF from all commercial and promotional material on TNT and TBS. And like in reading this, like I was unsure, was this AEW making this request, or was this internally within the network? In asking around, it sounds like this was an AEW call to make this. And thus Mike Johnson reporting that MJF is currently being edited out of any TBS and TNT spots he appears in, with different AEW footage replacing him. We are told that the existing spots with MJF have been officially pulled, but it's possible some may still pop up as they transition to the newer spots. So, I mean, this being an AEW call, you can certainly put this in line with everything else that they have done over this past week. I am not going to sit here and claim to have like 100% knowledge of all of this. I think that this is going to make a fantastic StarCast panel one day, several years down the road. And I'm sure that there are going to be elements that were legitimate, elements that were completely contrived for the public, and probably along the way, some very gray area that what might have been a plan skews differently. I think that there are a lot of questions about this that you can look at. But if you are Tony Khan, and this is the first time he has really done something like this, I would expect him to be this meticulous, even though like there is short term, like you could just look at that Cody spot from Sunday, and boom, they had that video up, they had the photos everywhere, and we know that Thursday they were at a high of where that promo would have been circulating everywhere, but it was pulled, and they're obviously playing something larger here, and I guess it's really like the jury is out until we see what the actual value of this angle is. They are in putting a lot into it. Will it actually show a meaningful return at the end of it all?
I think it's a really interesting experiment for an AEW product with their fan base. Over the course of this company's existence, I feel like we're learning new things about the behavior of maybe the more dedicated professional wrestling fan. And I just simply say that to, maybe contrast it with WWE, which to me might attract more, have a better chance of attracting a casual professional wrestling fan. Or I think AEW has seemingly gotten away with a lot. Examples like changing a start time of a rampage or something like that, very, very late notice, and audiences managing to find it in most cases, not all cases. CM Punk, at the United Center, simply dropping a line saying Darby Allin saying best in the world, ending up selling the entire building.
Which was the greatest example of a trust that you have built with your audience over 3 years, was that how many people in that lead up were just saying, oh, what if he doesn't show up? And it's like they sold out an arena because there was enough fans that believed AEW is not going to screw us on this, and we are going to get Punk. There was enough of that faith.
There's that too, but I think there's also a bit more of an understanding from AEW's particular audience to be able to read between the lines to know exactly what the messaging is. And in the case of MJF, for instance, even not showing the material on its social media platforms, that in no way will stop the news sites or social media or fans from spreading it. You saw just as many comments and videos about MJF's promo. I'm guaranteeing you there are fans, that know every single word of it by now, as if they had promoted it on its own. In fact, probably got more PR out of it by not putting it on their social media. So it's a different type of I think promotion that we're starting to see in modern times that I'm very excited by. I mean, when was the last time we were able to speak about what is at this point very clearly a professional wrestling angle, but in such terms as, I'm sure, like, what people were probably talking about in decades past when it came to like things like Andy Kaufman, on Letterman and such things like that. It's very exciting to me.
Yeah, I mean, the challenge will be keeping this relevant, and we've also never seen Tony Khan do an angle like this. So what is his attitude going to be towards all of this? Like, we don't have a history of him trying to do these angles, so this is like a first time attempt for him. And as we see, Way, and this is maybe a more exaggerated week, but this news cycle moves at an incredible speed. And already, as we're talking here on a Tuesday morning, the MJF story is, not where it was last Thursday or Friday. Like, it is, stuff happens, and you can, as a booker, when you're doing these types of angles, it just becomes this game of trying to, create more of that facade with your audience, and you can get really obsessed with this stuff. I think at the end of it, to make this thing valuable, it does have to kind of become an angle. There has to be MJF on your television, and you sort of can't get lost into the paranoia of your audience seeing this as an angle, even though many are looking at that. And there may be very questions about like the start of this and everything that is going on. But I think largely your audience is viewing this under the guise of like, this is AEW trying to make this look as legitimate as possible. But also having your questions, your open-endedness to some of this, which I'm sure will come out at some point, of all the, specifics of this whole layout and what went to plan, what did not go to plan.
Tomorrow, I think, will be a really interesting,
handling of it or lack thereof.
Exactly. Yeah. We've not gone a week without MJF on TV thus far in the midst of all this. So do they go ahead tomorrow and continue the facade and not have him mentioned at all on the show? Or do they, figure out some creative way to inject his um, interruption of the show somehow? Again, at this point, I think
if I was AEW, I would be investing in I would get like a third party, and I would buy advertising in several markets for
great idea.
SmackDown.
Yeah, that's great.
And
yeah,
you get
he's
like
got money.
the following has been paid for by the MJF Society, and it would air in like, buy some ads in New York and Chicago and LA for the SmackDown airing this Friday.
Do the NWO thing for real. And then they got to go to all the other markets, because I don't know if TSN would get those ads. So like he's got to be making deals.
Well, the
with
ads
TSN.
would show up online. That's the thing. You only have to buy a few markets, and fans would be posting the look what aired during SmackDown's commercial break, which they have. There's nothing to stop them from buying ad inventory, and you just and then you'd have like David Bixen's band connect the dots and find out who purchased this ad time, and you'd have to go through a third party and dupe everyone on that level.
So, we're partially joking, but don't think for a second that, a guy
this
like
is the
MJF,
way I completely believe Tony Khan thinks.
A guy like MJF and a guy like Tony Khan are going to be thinking at that level to try to think in 2022, what can we do to play with what is available to us to do the impossible, to get the wrestling fan who seems to know everything these days to believe in a story. And I'm very excited to see it.
I just hope that they do have a working idea of how this is all supposed to pan out, because the short term is, and listen, this week, a big issue for both sides is Dynamite, Rampage, and next Monday's Raw are going against the NBA Finals. These shows are going to get severely hurt, I would say, going against them.
I think MJF's got to get a ticket to these games.
Well, on top of it is that for the good of this story, you are taking one of your hottest characters at the moment off TV. Like, look at that breakdown that Brandon got of like the minute by minute man, MJF, and
that they may be taken off TV. I mean, again, he has not missed TV yet.
Well, that's the question, and we will see on Wednesday. Like, if there is no follow up to it, and then you are, you are putting a lot into this, and it's not a proven that this is going to reap rewards when you are able to execute this, and whether this is actually going to be as big of a story when, online buzz and profitability, they don't always go hand in hand.
Sure. Yeah.
I wouldn't get mistaken by like how much buzz this gets online with this being a big money drawing program, but we're early, and I don't think you can you can be positive or negative because we haven't seen it yet.
Well, what is money drawing in AEW's, context?
Well, number one, having a match at the end of all of this.
Yeah. I don't doubt that you'll get it, but sure, like we don't really know exactly who the opponent is. At some point, maybe it was supposed to be Punk.
And capitalizing off of this buzz, like all of this buzz right now, it's existing on website clicks and YouTube views, but not for your company. You're not gaining any of this now, but this is an investment to hopefully reap in those rewards later when you're ready to.
So they make money off a pay-per-view, right? I don't know if they already have, whatever might be earmarked for the end of this story at a pay-per-view. Forbidden Door doesn't seem to be a destination for something like this to play out. But beyond that, I mean, their biggest, I think, metric that they're looking for is ratings. Mm-hmm. And for that reason,
and especially like not now, but once you're really getting into these negotiations of having something hot on television, and maybe that is their belief that when we're ready to execute this and put MJF, like the summer is probably not the time to be doing this, but when you are, if this guy ends up being
when would they negotiate? You think?
I mean, I would think you're looking at like significant negotiations beginning like early next year, spring of next year. Okay. Like that's kind of the timeline you're looking for, and you would maybe want something really hot in the fall.
Yeah, but like you can't control the weather, right? And they are in the midst of this incredible potential storm of interest in this MJF story, and they have to strike while it's hot. But it's because of I think the reliance on ratings being so integral to the success of this company, and I think Tony Khan's own obsession, obviously, with wanting to impress Warner. that I don't think we go too long without seeing MJF on TV, if at all. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he showed up tonight or tomorrow, I should say.
Maybe we'll get a new faction on TV called the Warner Discovery Execs. The
The
Mixers
Warner
show up.
Discovery execs.
Just like 4 guys in suits.
Ooh, well, I think we've been through that enough, haven't we?
Yeah, okay, maybe not. We're not getting David Zaslav on Dynamite.
What I am curious about is like if we have any sort of like other people in story mentioning MJF or alluding to MJF, you know? Does he have any followers? Like, even if he does not appear on the show, can he have a dedicated you know, growing sort of a movement that is like, you know, starts to look at him as this sort of like messiah of sorts?
Maybe the Messiah Sean Spears.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Okay. On Monday, WWE announced via press release that they have hired Catherine Newman as its new head of marketing, and she will also hold an executive vice president title. Newman's duties will include overseeing marketing, brand, community relations, entertainment relations, creative services, and photography, according to the release. And she comes over from Manchester United Media, where she served as their chief marketing officer. And these will probably be like assuming a lot of the duties that Stephanie McMahon Lebec had previously been holding up until her leave of absence that was announced last month. And on the Stephanie front, it has been very interesting because over the weekend there was this Business Insider article, and in the article, it painted it as sort of this being like Stephanie's leave of absence tied to her performance and not just taking a leave of absence based on personal reasons. And in the article, it sort of paints it as though this was like an ouster led by Vince McMahon, which I think it's important to note that Dave Meltzer has refuted this in his reporting, stating that that was not the case of Vince McMahon driving Stephanie McMahon out and confirming that she indeed took a leave of absence on her own. And in the Business Insider article, it read that or wrote that Stephanie is being replaced in her corporate role as part of a shakeup executed by her father, Vince McMahon. And in the article, it does talk about the WWE's performance when it comes to advertising and sponsorships, which Stephanie has, like, that has been the area that she has overseen. And in the article, it lists where what the company has performed so far and the comparison to the UFC, which there was a recent CNBC article, and there had been a Guggenheim study on UFC's earnings in the advertising and sponsorship department in the neighborhood of $100 million. So you can see that this is from Business Insider. WWE raked in close to $20 million in advertising-related revenue for the first 3 months of this year, while ad sales are executed by programming partners including NBCU's USA Network and Peacock, as well as Fox and A&E. WWE has a goal of generating $100 million annually via brand partnerships, with an eye on the success of Endeavor-owned UFC in the space. So I think the larger question here is, so Stephanie McMahon, who is still part of their board of directors, and like the belief is like she will be returning. It may not be as chief brand officer, but is returning. And that, you know, there was an unnamed WWE insider that was quoted in this Business Insider article, and we're certainly just trying to paint Stephanie in a negative light. And from the outside looking in, like, it certainly does appear that there would be a pro and anti Stephanie set of camps inside WWE, and using, you know, the tactics of painting her negatively in this article.
Is that unusual, you know, to have take place, like somebody not
No.
liking somebody and somebody liking somebody? You know?
No, I think you will sometimes see different internal factions of companies that rely on the media to paint them in such a light. But it's a very daring move, I think you would say, to be even unnamed, to go and speak on background to a publication of note that it's going to get some traction, and painting, you know, a McMahon in a very negative light and feeling the ability to go out and do so. And I think it goes against the at least public statement of how WWE wanted to position it. And from all intents and purposes, and I rely on Dave's reporting here, that it was, this is not a case of she being like ousted from the company.
Yeah, are they in the back right now, kind of trying to sniff out who it was that said these terrible things about Stephanie McMahon? I'm also curious, like, how Dave was able to get confirmation from somebody. Like, is this just a case of, like, he said, she said, or did he go to the source somehow and was able to figure out exactly why Stephanie was not, was absent, is absent.
Yeah, and also how the handling of Stephanie McMahon, if that will be a major topic of conversation on the next investors call, and what their performance is when it comes to the, like, for WrestleMania, they stated they generated around like $10 million in ads and sponsorships, which is a great for sort of a one event cycle. But when you're looking, and this comes in very close proximity to that article about the UFC and what they've been able to generate, and it was very much painted that WWE has a very engaging fan base that there's nothing that should be stopping them from being on par with the UFC, and if they can raise that area of their business beyond this, whatever it was last year, around 35 million, and getting it up to 9 figures annually.
I mean, if you ask me, as somebody who strictly reviews the content and maybe not so much the rest of the business, I feel like it's very clear what the issues are that's preventing it from maybe achieving a similar level of success as the UFC, and that's creative. But I mean, is any of that ever discussed, or is it not a factor to, I guess, other people that are measuring this sort of thing?
I think what you're seeing is, like, I mean, as much as we might scoff at it, like the stuff like the zombie stuff last year, I mean, they're all high-fiving each other when they're able to land a deal like that, or do the Pizza Hut Battle Royal at WrestleMania, and all of those kind of integrations, and the Mike's Hard Lemonade. But I guess the idea is, now we're seeing the incorporation of DraftKings on WWE, and just further, like, what can we monetize here, and putting up those digital boards and just finding other unique ways. And I think if you watch a UFC broadcast and you just watch it from that perspective, you can see, like, it was so funny when they introduced the uniforms back in 2014 for the fighters, and they have taken the outside sponsorship opportunities away from them. One of the reasons was, well, we don't want them to look like race car drivers and they're just buried in logos and stuff. Dude, you look at that canvas of the octagon, dude, it is just a mess of logos that they are reaping the benefits of inside of them. And that has been, for better or worse, a line that Vince McMahon has never wanted to cross, of putting branding all over the ring onto the canvas. They are starting to introduce more stuff in the body of the show, or at least ringside. But it's I think one of the big initiatives of this, like, Nick Khan era, if you want to call it that, is we have all of these characters, and how can we monetize all of this, as we call them, intellectual property, and find value in all of them. And you're seeing all of these television deals that they're able to strike with your A&Es of the world, scripted and non-scripted entertainment vehicles that they're putting together, all based around their talent and including Vince McMahon. So I think that's all kind of, we have this cash cow, but are we milking everything out of this cow that we can? And I think that there is certainly a contingent that believes that there's plenty more milk to be had, as I exhaust this cow analogy.
Yeah, I'm lactose intolerant. So
okay, how's your IP doing?
My IP?
Are we getting all the value out of the Wai Ting brand?
My hats are exclusive to Post Wrestling, so
yes,
that's all the advertising space I can offer.
The official hat apparel company, the hat sponsor of the Post Wrestling News Update. Okay, we continue on here to the ratings notes from Friday. SmackDown did 1,939,000 viewers and a 0.47 in the 18 to 49 demographic, number one among network programs, and their best 18 to 49 number since April the 22nd. They did not have NBA competition, but they did go against the NHL, which was number one on television on Friday night. The NHL numbers have been very strong as the playoffs have been continuing. Like we have the numbers are insane here in Canada, but in the U.S. they're certainly reflecting that as they have gotten deeper into the playoffs, and they're not even at the Stanley Cup final yet. So very strong numbers for the NHL. SmackDown was also up 30% in the 18 to 34 demographic, and this was the show that had the Usos against
Nakamura and Riddle.
Bronin and Ronan.
Correct. Yes.
Yes. And the 6-pack challenge with the women, which were the promoted aspects of the show. Rampage returned to its normal time slot and did 475,000 viewers. So the move from last week at 6:30 p.m. to 10 Eastern was a 39% increase in viewers. In the demo, identical to the week before. They did not get any growth in 18 to 49, moving from 6:30 to 10, and both were live shows, so you did have that comparison as well.
In this one, I mean, granted, it was very late, but with the CM Punk mention, but that didn't really come out online until what felt like 8 o'clock, 8:30.
Yeah, I would want to say it was around 90 minutes to 2 hours before the show that people were made aware of that, and it did circulate fairly quickly, especially in that final hour leading into it, which I thought might increase a bit of curiosity of just what the announcement was. But I would say this is a little disappointing moving back to the time slot. Again, they were against the NHL game, but I also didn't think that moving back to 10 was going to be a 1 week bounce back to their pre-playoff levels. It was 4 weeks outside of the time slot, and that's always the concern when you bounce around like that of how long it's going to take for your previous audience to come back to the show, or if some of them drop the habit of watching a show on Friday nights and realize, hey, Friday nights are a fun night, and I don't need wrestling on Friday nights. That's always a risk you take when you open the door and give them a chance to walk out. Will they come back in? But we'll see over the coming weeks, because now the NHL schedule is not going to impact them. They're at their regular time slot this week and moving forward until there's something else to move them around. But we should get some consistency now for Rampage, which means 11 p.m. Friday nights for you and me.
That is what it means. Yeah. Okay, we'll see.
And our last bit of news here is my favorite monthly story, and that is the Stipulations being presented for the King of Pro Wrestling match that will take place at Dominion this Sunday with Taichi and Shingo Takagi. So they had quite a spirited press conference where both men put forth their options that I guess will be voted on online before Sunday's match. So Taichi, he relied on his YouTube subscribers to throw ideas at him, and his pitch is a no time limit, limited finishers 10 count match. I know it sounds self-explanatory, but for the sake of it, let me explain from Taichi's wording. He refers to Takagi. I know you're an idiot, so I'll explain it to you. The no time limit part means that there isn't a limit on how long the match goes. Now, limited finishers. I pinned you with a Gato clutch, and you tried to have your little get back on me with the ground cobra. So that's fine. Only my Gato clutch and your ground cobra will count. Other moves, whether it's a lariat, a brainbuster, or a DDT, you can't score a pin from. And the 10 count. Whoever gets a total of 10 first wins. Last time it was 30. And although I can humiliate you and pin you for 30 in one go, I won't, because I'm nice. So 10 it is. How's that? My answer? Fucking confusing. So his idea is to have a no time limit match. You have to get to a cumulative count of 10, and you can only generate a pinfall by those respective moves, the Ghetto Clutch or the Ground Cobra from Shingo Takagi.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts on the idea?
Well, please go on. Finish the rest.
Takagi, 10-minute unlimited pinfall scramble match. It's as simple as can be, a word that I greatly appreciate. Whatever happens, 10 minutes to settle it. Last time we had no time limits and a 30 count. I think in the opening moments of that, we took our time a little as a result. This time, it isn't in the main event, and I think it's pretty appropriate to try and get the win in 10 minutes. That's what's going to put the two of us to the test, mentally and physically. It'll be a different side to the both of us. We'll be throwing bombs from the get-go, trying to get the win as soon as possible, and even though it won't be the main event, it'll be the match that everyone remembers on this card. So that's his idea, way more explanatory, and pretty much it's like a high-speed style of match if you've watched the high-speed championship matches in Stardom, but with a unlimited pinfalls in a 10-minute time span. I'm all for the 10-minute match.
Yeah, you're just at that point just trying to score as much as possible. Listen, the first time that these two had their King of Pro Wrestling match and announced whatever rules that they were vying for at that point, we made fun of it. We laughed. We talked about how stupid it was. I watched the match and I loved it. Okay. They sound very complicated to start, but once you get into the body of the match, I think you'll catch up if you choose to watch it. To me, like, this is what the King of Pro Wrestling title should be. You know, it should be exploring ways of telling story that are very different and not just, you know, reliant on, hey, stuff your opponent in a cage or something like that. What was very special to me about their last match was the fact that every single pinfall. So, by the way, the last match was, I believe, whoever got the cumulative count of 30 first.
Yes.
One. What was special about the match was that every single pinfall meant something. And that's something that usually does not matter so much in professional wrestling. You know, in the first 5 minutes of, for instance, a 30-minute New Japan match, you could skip the first 20 minutes of most 30-minute New Japan main events. And I don't think it wouldn't, in most cases, have that much of an impact on the finish. In a case like this, every single pinfall from the beginning all the way up until the very end matters. And that to me is something that is at least exciting and worth experimenting with in pro wrestling. So I don't even, like the Shingo Takagi idea of just having 10 minutes to score as many pins as you can. That's probably the easier one to digest. I don't really hate the Tai Chi one, and I'm kind of curious to see it, you know? So that one, again, is you can only use 2 moves. Basically, pinfalls from only 2 moves will count towards your total. And the total is what, 10?
In the
Tai Chi one.
The Tai Chi one is 10.
Yeah. So, I mean, that in itself, too, I think, offers some probably pretty interesting, ways that you can tell that story as well. I'm kind of for both of it. And most importantly, what makes something like this work is having 2 very creative and very capable people. And Tai Chi is one of those people, but certainly Shingo Takagi is absolutely one of those people. So I think whatever happens, I feel like it'll probably be entertaining as much as the last one.
There's also 10 matches on this card as well. So I'm also looking at it in the middle of this show. So yeah, you've got Kazuchika Okada against Jay White in the main event. Juice Robinson, I guess, if he is going to go ahead and do this match, has been announced for defending the U.S. title against Will Ospreay and Sonata.
This is after appendicitis.
Yes, which sounds, I don't know. I don't know how that works. Tama Tonga against Carl Anderson, Shingo and Taichi. Shingo has also said that if he might change this trophy into a belt.
The Openweight Championship?
The trophy.
Sorry, what?
The trophy. The King
of Pro Wrestling.
the King of Pro
Wrestling. Okay, yes, okay, yeah, sure.
And then Tanahashi against Goto. Bullet Club members Bad Luck Fale and Chase Owens defending the tag titles against Great O'Khan and Jeff Cobb. Evil, Yujiro, and Sho against Zack Sabre Jr., El Desperado, and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. Doc Gallows against Toru Yano. Naito, Bushi, and Hiromu against Taiji Shimori, El Phantasmo, and Ace Austin. And in the opener, Ryusuke Taguchi and Master Wato teaming with Hiroyoshi Tenzan against TJP, Francesco Akira, and Aaron Hanare. So pretty packed show from Osaka Joe Hall coming up on Sunday. But tonight, we have NXT 2.0 coming out of the In Your House show. And they have only announced 3 matches as of right now, including the breakout tournament final between Tiffany Stratton and Roxanne Perez, Josh Briggs taking on Von Wagner, and Elba Fire against Tatum Paxley.
Okay, yeah.
Matches.
Sure. Also the place, of course, for some follow-up from In Your House and seeing what the next directions are.
Yes, they're going to do the Great American Bash special on July the 5th. And I guess, are we moving on from Braun Breaker and Joe Gacy? Was this a definitive end to this epic showdown?
This is the season for trilogies where one person wins every single match. So maybe.
Okay, we will find out. That's coming up tonight. Check out Davey and Braden. They will be live at 10:15 Eastern, twitch.tv/UpNextPodcast, and then available on the Up Next podcast feed. And their chats, if there's one word that comes out of them every time I hear them, it's super.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Super chats are what it's all about. And we go to one of them here from Keyshawn Amirali, longtime supporter of ours. Thank you so much, Keyshawn, for the $10 super chat. He says, if Cody's return lines up with the Rumble, would you do the subtle hints throughout without outright telling the audience that he will be in it, similar to his Mania match? Thanks as always.
No, I would promote his comeback. I would make a big deal out of it. I would do the opposite. I mean, we've done the surprise returns at the Rumble, and there's sometimes they work, and other times I think you need to really. There's a great story to be told in the comeback rather than boom, he just shows up. People are going to be expecting it if he's actually out that long. We don't know what the timetable is going to be, but if you're asking me today, I think you build it up, and that is. And he might be ready before that. I mean, that's, if he recovers in a shorter amount of time, you're not going to just keep him on the shelf for several months if the Rumble's further away.
Yeah, I mean, I'd give him the Triple H treatment, So I don't know if U2 has a new hit. I don't know if they're still making songs these days, but call Bono up. Hey, can we borrow? I mean,
maybe he can come out to a remix where the roads have no name.
Is that a U2 song?
Where the streets have no name?
Oh, okay. Yes. Ah, very good. Very good, John. You're right on it.
That's the best I've got.
Or just get Downstate. Like Downstate. Can you write a new comeback song for Cody?
Can you guys do a remix of Beautiful Day?
Get Snoop Dogg on.
Beautiful night and day.
You can get Snoop Dogg on to write a verse for it because
we
know they have that connection. So there's way too much potential, I think.
There's way too many fond memories of this Beautiful Day treatment of Hunter. Let's completely change everyone's perception of it with a collaboration of Downstate, Snoop, and let's throw in the guy from Saliva too.
Is he alive?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
You're thinking
Josie.
Josie. Yes. Let's move on. This is a remix I never want to envision in my head. That's going to wrap things up. Exciting times as always.
Today, 4 o'clock Eastern time, up at the Post Wrestling Cafe, we have the latest edition of Talk, where John Pollock and I will kind of do what we're doing right now, except we won't be talking at all about professional wrestling. We will be instead talking about our favorite topics, us.
Yes.
It is our quarterly show where we get to just basically, discuss the latest things that are going on in our personal and professional lives. So that's out at 4 o'clock, a little bit earlier than usual in the Post Wrestling Cafe this week.
Yes. I like the color you chose this month.
Thank you.
I do like it. These are the second most anticipated quarterly calls in pro wrestling.
That is correct. Yes.
I think everyone will enjoy this one. It's coming out today. That's it. We're back tomorrow. Same time, 1 Eastern. Go check out postwrestling.com for all of the latest news and have a wonderful day.